Hello and welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Rausam Pereira. The SCO summit held on Tuesday under the Russian presidency adopted 16 documents, including key ones on countering spread of extremist ideologies and promoting digital economy. The leaders discussed the current state and priority goals of SCO activities in the context of the dominant global political and economic processes. While speaking at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit on Tuesday, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi emphasized on the importance of countries respecting each other's sovereignty and territorial integrity. Prime Minister Modi, during his virtual speech, also pointed out the attempts being made to hinder with the SCO's agenda. The Prime Minister was virtually addressing the 20th summit of the SCO Council of Heads of State, and it was the first time Prime Minister Modi and Xi Jinping were coming face-to-face after the India-China border conflict. In this edition of The Big Picture, we will analyze the takeaways from the SCO summit. Joining me on the program today are Manjeev Singh Puri, former ambassador, Dhruv C. Katoch, Director, India Foundation, and KP Nair, strategic analyst. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on this edition of The Big Picture. Ambassador, let me begin the program with you first. Let's understand the key takeaways really as far as the 20th virtual SCO summit for the heads of state was concerned.
Thank you very much, Frank. And I'm so glad that Rajya Sabha TV is focusing on the SCO. The SCO is a very important regional cooperation organization which focuses both on security issues, including counterterrorism, as well as development issues. With so much of our interest being focused across the Atlantic Ocean, and I'm so glad that you brought this mainstream organization into focus for us. And you are so right. Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi was on the same table, although virtually, with President Xi Jinping of China, as well as Prime Minister Imran Khan of Pakistan. The SCO's format is very interesting. There are two high-level summits in each of these sessions. One is at the level of heads of state, which is the one which took place, where traditionally the Indian Prime Minister has represented India, and the other is at the level of heads of government. Now, in the past, India has always been represented there by the Foreign Minister as the special envoy of the Prime Minister, but this time that summit will be hosted by India on the 30th of November, and the Honorable Prime Minister, as an exception, will be playing host to that. So this summit was particularly interesting, even though at a time of COVID that they couldn't meet, because it brings the most important regional players together on a platform to discuss matters of crucial interest, including peace and security. Now, what did we do? Of course, the Honorable Prime Minister stressed what has been very important for him, which is the need to reform multilateralism. The SCO also, after all, contributes to the globe coming together, countries cooperating, and global governance. And the presence of Russia and China, two permanent members of the Security Council, was particularly important. Note, the Chinese in particular haven't been really in favor of UN reforms, in particular Security Council reforms. The Russians too have been iffy about the whole thing. So to bring it to focus was particularly important. Secondly, the Honorable Prime Minister mentioned COVID. You can't escape mentioning COVID in the current thing. But in a very gentle but a very firm message, when he mentioned that India is the largest producer of vaccines and our vaccines will be available to the world to help and cure them. Very important, beautiful message, but one, the subtlety and the importance of it, which certainly would not have been lost on anyone. He then, of course, very clearly mentioned that these sort of fora need to be used for global cooperation and not to be misused as Pakistan has done in the past for raising bilateral matters. And I think that point went down very well with people. And lastly, he told them that he wishes to use the forum, especially when we will host it on the 30th of September, to raise the issues of coming together and working together. And what were the two special fields? One was startups and innovation, in which India has done fantastically well and really one of the path-breaking. And the other is the area of traditional medicine. I think all in all, very good for us, huge takeaways, positive takeaways for us, having countries of real concern in our neighborhood around the table, listening to us and being able to, in a sense, internalize the Indian agenda, a positive agenda for the world.
Absolutely, absolutely. Very well summed up there by Manjeet Puri, really, as far as what really happened at the SCO summit. But Mr. Nair, let me bring you into the picture now, and let's look at the broader picture, really, as far as the SCO is concerned. Do you believe that the SCO has drifted away from its original agenda over the years?
No, I don't think so. I mean, SEO by global standards of multilateral organizations, SEO is still young, and I would say that in the 20 years that it has been in existence, it has been sort of finding its feet. And now we are approaching the 20th year of the SEO. And not only have they not drifted away from its moorings and its objectives, this particular summit, I think, consolidated past gains. For example, this summit adopted the action plan, SEO action plan for 2021-25. Aimed at implementing the SEO development strategy until 2025, you see. And, if I may mention something in my role as a journalist covering these summits, you see, previously we always had, we looked for certain parameters to find out the effectiveness of a summit, For instance, how long did Deng Xiaoping hold the hand of his old friend, Vice President K.R. Narayanan, when he went there, to indicate the warmth of the relationship, you see? Or how long did the US President buttonhole him at an unscheduled meeting during a summit, a pull-away summit. How long was that? So now that these summits are virtual, we don't have these parameters to go by. So one thing I noticed about this particular summit is that, you see, the Russian diplomacy, the glorious tradition of Russian diplomacy, always gauge the success of a summit by the documents it signed, the agreements that were signed. And this has been like that from Tsarist time, the Soviet times, and currently. And answering your question about the success and the moorings of SEO, I noticed this time that this summit came out with 16 documents, 1-day summit. 16 documents is no mean achievement, you see. And of these 16 documents, only 5 were adopted without signing, which meant that there were 11 documents which were discussed in depth. So I would say that this was a very productive summit. Sure. And very substantive summit. And it has consolidated the gains in the last 20 years of the SCO, and now we are looking ahead. We intend to go ahead as a regional multilateral grouping towards achieving more results, better results for humanity.
Absolutely. We'll look ahead into the future and see what really we can get out of the SCO. But before that, General, let me come across to you now, and let's talk about this issue of, raising bilateral issues at multilaterals. Isn't that counterproductive?
No, obviously it is counterproductive, but if we have always observed that in any of these meetings or wherever Pakistan comes in, it is it is a matter of fact that Pakistan will always raise issues related to India. Though in this particular case, Prime Minister Imran Khan did not directly name India, but the emphasis of what he was saying was very, very clear, which is why when the Prime Minister responded, I think that was a very appropriate response. There has been in many of these meetings which are taking place where the heads of states are meeting, in many of these times when these meetings are taking place, we see the response of the Prime Minister of Pakistan coming in a very rash and abrasive manner. And then we see the Indian response coming in a very, I would use the word dignified, a very dignified way. And I think the Prime Minister's response here was very dignified. But the message was delivered very firmly, I would say, that he made it clear to all the participants that don't put extraneous issues onto the table. Here we are talking of larger issues, and I think those larger issues are something which are important, as has been said by the previous panelists, as far as the region is concerned. Now, if we inject into these groupings bilateral issues, then I think the SCO will also go the way SARC has gone. You see, SARC is a non-starter basically because of one country, which doesn't really permit you to go beyond a particular phase. So these bilateral issues have to be kept out. And I think that was a message, it is a very firm message to Pakistan, but I think it is also a reasonably firm message to China also. Now, having said that, one of the main, the charter as far as the SCO is concerned is both on security and on development. Now, I think the larger concentration now it has to be on development, because the way the SCO is configured, the progress as far as security is concerned and counter-terrorism is concerned, I do not foresee any major headway going there. Seeing the way the countries are actually placed, we have a country like China, which is in direct support of Pakistan, which is the major sponsor of terror, and that terrorism is being used by and large against India. Though we are not the only sufferers, it is also hammering the rest of the world. So we have these three major players in SCO. So I don't see any major forward movement going ahead as far as the counter-terrorism aspects are concerned, except when it relates to the countries, to the four countries besides India, China, Pakistan, and Russia.
Right.
So besides that, we can do something there. We can do something in Afghanistan, but beyond that, I really don't see any forward movement going as far as the counter-terrorism aspect is concerned.
Sure. Okay, points taken. Let me take the points that both the panelists, KP Nair and Dhruv Katoch, have made forward with you, Manjeet Puri. As far as 16 documents, of course, like Mr. Nair was pointing out, 16 documents have been adopted as far as this particular summit is concerned. That's quite a lot of progress, really. And, on this issue of extremist ideology, let's not forget that one of those documents was signed on extremist ideology as well. So as far as extremism is concerned, how big an issue is it for the SCO, and are they serious about tackling it?
Frank, when the SCO began, these were some of the key issues, the issues of terrorism and the issues of extremism linked to that. And don't forget, these issues of Islamic terrorism were the ones which were core even at that particular perspective and that particular point of view. In fact, in a sense, Pakistan's joining is, as General Katoch has kind of hinted, has brought in a slightly different dimension to it. But that's the way organizations grow if you want to have regional cooperation and so on and so forth. So this is extremely important. Now, that 16 documents were adopted. I think that's very good. It shows that the institutional arrangements, the institutional backup, etc., is going forward. And for me, what was very important was that the leaders were around a table, even though this table was virtual. They spoke, even though much of it was prepared speeches. But they spoke, they listened to each other, and they would have certainly got the message firsthand from one another. And for us, I think it was particularly important that the Honorable Prime Minister addressed some of the most important leaders in the world with India's interest issues, which are truly global issues and very important for the region itself. So I think all in all, it was a very meaningful summit, very good. And remember, we will have an opportunity to also host a sort of a 1B summit of the SCO on the 30th of November at the level of heads of government who are equally important leaders in various countries. And so to be able to utilize this important body, we have a unique opportunity, and I think we are moving in the right direction, and we've leveraged it well.
Right. Okay. So, Mr. Nair, you spoke about we need to build on the gains and look ahead. What do you believe are the key focus areas going to be going forward?
See, there are two aspects of by way of answering your question. By way of building up for India, I think the Prime Minister laid the ground for a certain kind of equation that we had with the SCO region. You see, for example, in the old days, when many of the SCO member countries were part of the Soviet Union, India's great strength in that region was our soft power, I mean, if I may mention a personal experience, many years ago when I was in Tashkent, my friend Manjeev will remember our late lamented Alok Sen was number 2 at our mission there. And I was walking along the streets of Tashkent, and 2 Uzbek women came behind me, and they were calling me Raj Kapoor, Raj Kapoor. So we had great strength in our soft power in the entire region, even including Russia. And I noticed that our Prime Minister made a strenuous and definitely potentially successful effort to revive our soft power there. For instance, he mentioned that next year, India will be hosting the SCO Food Festival in our country, and he hoped that it will be held in a post-COVID atmosphere. Similarly, he pledged India's total support for 2021 next year as the SCO Culture Year, which will be the 20th anniversary of SCO. And he also said that next year our National Museum will be hosting the first SCO exhibition on Buddha heritage, you see. Then the Indian Literature Academy of India, has already translated 10 major works of Indian literature into Russian and Chinese, you see. And in the run-up to this summit, I thought it was very significant that in Beijing at the SCO Secretariat, all the SCO member countries, diplomats, took part in yoga, in practicing yoga, you see, which is a validation of what India has been doing to promote worldwide, specific to the SCO thing. So from India's point of view, I would say that the big achievement for us is going to be the revival of Indian soft power, which somewhat took a backseat after the breakup of the Soviet Union. But for SCO itself, I think one of the major achievements is going to be the adoption of the concept for cooperation on the development of remote and rural areas in the digital age, and also what the comprehensive action plan on dealing with the pandemics. That is something I think, apart from India's soft power, these are what SCO, in my opinion, intends to go ahead with.
Right. Right. Okay, General. So let me bring you in on this issue of soft power. There is no doubt that there is a tremendous, goodwill as far as India is concerned, and we've tried to use soft power in the past as well, especially in this particular region, Afghanistan, Iran, and in Central and West Asia. But how do we convert this goodwill into something tangible, something that is gainful for us?
Frank, soft power, of course, is a very, very important aspect of any nation. And if you see what the West has been doing and what America has been doing, their soft power has gone across all the world. If you look at the brand like Coca-Cola or McDonald's or something like that, these things are spread across the world. And what India was doing, for some reason, we really didn't take it up. But now things have changed, especially when you look at a subject like yoga, which has just been alluded to. That has become a worldwide phenomena. I have a feeling very, very shortly, the Indian forms of medicine, the Indian forms of dance, food, etc., they are all going to spread like wildfire across the globe. And I think that is going to add to our strength. But having said that, you see, soft power, unfortunately, cannot operate in a vacuum. So it has to be a conjunction of soft power along with your other capabilities. And I think what the Prime Minister is doing now is to put those other capabilities also on the table. Like India's stand as far as climate change is concerned, that is one. India's stand as far as COVID is concerned, and I think the statement which he made that we will give this medicine to the whole world. Now that automatically puts India in the pole position as far as leadership in tackling the pandemic is concerned. Uh, the connectivity issues, the development issues, especially when you're going down to the remote villages, I think what we are trying to do in India through what we call the Atmanirbhar Bharat, I think those same sort of programs can actually be duplicated or replicated rather in many parts of SCO, especially in the the Asian republics, the four CAR members who are a part of the SCO. And some of those areas are very, very remote areas, and we have got great potential there. Uh, uh, Ultimately, I think the two things which we really need to do very, very quickly is to get the Chabahar port going and to get the north-south corridor going. Somehow, Pakistan still plays the spoiler, but I really don't know how long Pakistan can continue to do so. Very frankly, we generally I try to avoid using the word Pakistan, but it always comes into the conversation because this country plays the spoiler. And as far as which is why, as I had made in my initial remarks, when we are looking at counter-terrorism, Pakistan will play the spoiler and they will be supported by China. But I
Right.
think on other issues, perhaps can we get them on board? Can we get both China and Pakistan on board? And can India play the leadership role now as far as SCO is concerned?
Sure.
The whole world is looking for leadership, and I think the Prime Minister can provide it.
Absolutely. All right. Time to get closing comments now from all my panelists with the best way forward. Starting first with the ambassador.
Frank, the SCO is an important regional body. And it's an important regional body because it's got important players in it, Russia, China, and India, along with others in the region. I am glad that we are harnessing this body to put forward our interests, which are also in global interests. And it is important that we are, in a sense, in the driving seat. This has been a good augury, and we have another opportunity to repeat it with these important countries on the 30th of November. This is going well, and I am very glad that we are taking this opportunity of working with players, which are major stakeholders in the world, to try and push forward global as well as India's agenda, which have all a great deal of coterminous coincidence.
Absolutely. Mr. Nair.
On a lighter note to conclude, what I found interesting was that, our present government, the Modi government, is very good at coining acronyms, starting with the first acronym Niti Aayog. All our programs, everything has an acronym. I found that this time, this summit, SCO has adopted this practice, in my opinion, you see. For example, one of the documents adopted was the SCO Regional Anti-Terrorist Structural Communal Report. Shortened, it is described in the SCO communique as RATS activities, you see. I mean, it is, of course, shortened, it reads as RATS activities. But what is interesting, as you know, terrorists are inadvertently being described as rats. And this communique is referring to the activities of rats, which are, the terrorists are worse than rats. And I found this very interesting, this use of acronym. The Indian habit is spreading to SARC, and that I thought was
To SCO.
a very
To SCO.
positive but light-hearted development.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. General, close the show for us with your concluding remarks.
Right. I think I would just like to state that for very long, India has been a back foot player as far as taking initiatives at the global level are concerned. For some reason, we really didn't want to be put up right in the front to say, okay, we take the lead in this. I think all that is changing now. And I'm glad, as the ambassador so correctly said, that the SCO provides us a forum, one more forum now to take the leadership role. And I think if this is something which should be seized. There are great opportunities here, both in the field of medicine and tackling the COVID crisis, as well as in development activities. And if we can go ahead with that and take the leadership role, I think that will place us very well in further getting a seat on the high table, which we will get, I'm quite certain, in due course of time. And this is one of the forums which will propel us to our actual place in the world. Right.
Absolutely. All right. On that note, then I'll call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. Thank you to all my guests for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. What's coming out of this discussion is that the SCO has not deviated from its original agenda over the last 20 years since its inception. The SCO has made considerable gains and also consolidated on them as it has gone along. The adoption of 16 documents at the recently held summit shows that there is a robust institutional arrangement and backup in place, and the fact that each of the leaders listened to each other and reacted to each other's speeches too shows that each one respects the other and wants to take the spirit of this organization forward. The SCO is an important multilateral regional grouping. We should ensure we further the gains of the past into the future. How we do that is we ensure that we build on our goodwill, use our soft power, and also team it up with other aspects to ensure that we see some tangible gains. With that, it's a wrap. See you again next time.